Peter Orser has been past president of Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Company, as well as Quadrant Homes. He's also been the past president of King and Snohomish County Master Builders Association, chairman of the King County Housing Authority, and Forterra. And he's been appointed by the governor to serve on the Washington State Affordable Housing Board. Peter's been a longtime active member in the Runstad Real Estate Center Advisory Board, and he's agreed to come on to share some of his past experiences in real estate. Hello, Peter. Thanks for coming on with us today. How you doing?
Doing great. Couldn't be better.
So, help us to understand your background, and I understand you have a master's in urban planning. How did that come together?
You want to start there, huh? Okay. I think it's a funny story, actually, that today I'm working with the Runstad Department, but I started in 1980 in the graduate program of urban planning at the very college. So 80 to 82, I got a master's in urban planning, or as my children refer to it as herbal planting. They never quite knew what it actually was. But I found it fascinating background, but what I learned was I wanted to be the person getting the permit, not the person delivering the permit, to speak metaphorically, I guess. And so it was a tough time, 1982. I think interest rates were hovering around 18%, and Jimmy Carter was in the presidency, and it wasn't a great opportunity for real estate in general, but I found an interesting job in the Denny Regrade Property Owners Association. We were going through the rezone of the downtown plan, and I had this graduate degree, and they needed an executive director. So if I could collect $100 a lot from each of the property owners, I could actually barely pay my starting salary. And my job was to defend the property owners in the Denny Regrade, better known now as Belltown, because it was all being proposed as residential. And these particular property owners were more interested in commercial for obvious reasons. And so regardless of the politics, what a great experience it was to engage with the city and engage with people like Martin Seelig and those property owners out there and try to rethink how Belltown should develop in the future at the same time as the downtown plan was being developed. So as a planner with some aspiration for real estate, it couldn't be a better position. Of course, it didn't last long, and I moved on to the next opportunity, which was working for a small multifamily developer, building apartments. A bunch of guys from Canada came down, having made a bunch of money in Vancouver. And there were 4 principals and 1 employee, and I was that 1 employee. So I got yelled at a lot, but I got to get involved in all kinds of different things, from acquisition to design to construction to property management, all as the owner's representative. So that was fantastic. And I often tell people, if you have an opportunity to work for a small organization like that, where you get exposure to all those different kinds of things, it's really fantastic. There wasn't a lot of upside, and in fact, several years later went bankrupt as the multifamily cycled out. And I, with a small family, was left to find my next opportunity. And I have a friend who introduced me to this company called Quadrant, who was building a fantastic project under the Fremont Bridge. At the time, it was a bunch of old warehouses and lots of hazardous issues because it was a lumber mill at one point owned by the Burke family. And they needed an assistant project manager to help with permitting and really managing those warehouses. So my job was to work with all those industrial tenants like Quejack Boats, who have become world famous since then, and Sound Mind and Body exercise facility, and whatever you could do to fill that space. So I got the reputation for having the lowest TI budget in the company, because I would take a roll of masking tape and mask out a 10 by 10 square where some fisherman would drop all of his nets and rent it from us for 35 cents a month, 100 square feet. And that was the extent of their TIs, was the demising with masking tape. But ultimately that became quite a project, and it's there today and has Google. And it was an extraordinary experience working with a community, working in an urban environment. But I spent 2 years in that job, and then went and worked in Bellevue for the company, opening up a multifamily division. The president said, "Well, you've lived in an apartment, Peter. You can run this." And so we developed a venture with a company called Holly Homes and built several thousand apartment units. And again, that 5-year cycled out, and I moved to land development and worked on Snoqualmie Ridge and Northwest Landing and Redmond Ridge, which was very valuable that I had some planning experience, because in a sense we built 3 new cities. So great opportunity. And then was given the opportunity to work on the home building side. And you can see this company of more substance had all these different pathways and opportunities. So I'm very blessed to have had the small company and then the large company experience. But my next opportunity was home building. And then we wanted to bring home building together with land development. And at the time, Quadrant was the 8th largest home builder, building almost 100 homes. When I left the home building operation, we were the largest home builder, building 1,500 homes. I think my biggest career highlight was working with a fantastic team of people to develop what we call the lean manufacturing process. Essentially Henry Ford, but the houses didn't move through the line. We moved the line through the houses, and we ended up building homes in 53 days and really had a very thoughtful, even flow process, which created a bunch of affordability. And my greatest experience was being able to hand over the keys. I remember one time, a husband and wife just returning from Iraq, both on tour, and buying a new house and giving them the keys. It just really resonated with me what housing does for a family and the opportunity to live affordably. And so that was just a fantastic experience, not only working with customers, but sort of innovating. That same boss who said I'd lived in an apartment said to me, "Well, you have no idea how to build a house, and so I can understand why you're doing such a good job of innovating around how to build a house, because you don't know how to do it." And he was right? There were no rules. I didn't have any paradigms that I was wrestling with, and I was, well, let's try it. And so that was a fantastic experience. Ultimately, the CEO of Weyerhaeuser asked me to come down and run the Weyerhaeuser real estate company. So Weyerhaeuser had 6 different Quadrant type companies across the country, each with their own brand, each with their own leader, just like Quadrant, but there needed to be somebody sort of organizing that under the Weyerhaeuser umbrella. So I got that job. Took me kind of off the line. I wasn't building anything anymore. I was allocating capital to, unbelievably expensive parcels in California or unbelievably complex buildings in Maryland. So it was a fantastic experience that way, getting sort of a national exposure. But ultimately, a timber company that became a REIT was not particularly interested in the volatility of home building revenues. So the board decided that it would be a good time to sell this real estate company. So again, I was right in the middle of a fantastic experience of trying to value it, trying to, create a competitive situation for buyers, and meeting several major home builders who were vying for the opportunity because it was a true diamond in terms of its value. And ultimately, we sold it for $2.8 billion, which surprised all of us, to a company called Quadrant Homes. And they retained the brand of Quadrant Homes and the leaders and the people. And so it was a really good transition. But the CEO said, you know, Peter, there's really not room for two CEOs. And I said, I get it. I win, you lose, right? So I became, quote, retired. And that was in 2014. But I don't do retirement very well, as you know, Jeff. But so I'd been engaged in a variety of nonprofits and other initiatives, and one of which was the Runstad program, which became a department. And so I'd been on the board for a little while, and we were looking for a leader for the department, and they asked me to step in the interim. So I really got an inside view of the Runstad program for about 18 months while we were looking for the next chair of the department. So that was fun and fascinating. And at the same time, or maybe it was just after, I became chair of the board. So I did that for a couple of years. And now I'm past chair and quickly moving down the ranks, which is just fine with me. But I guess my current role is membership chair, trying to bring in new leaders to the board and add to the mix of our own professional diversity as well as all kinds of diversity. We need to add a little bit of that to our white world. And so it's been a fantastic experience. And so my road has been all over the map, starting in Gould Hall and now ending at Gould Hall. Maybe not ending, but currently at Gould Hall. So.
Wow, quite the history there, and thanks for sharing, and thanks for all you've done for the Runstad Department. And I mean, it's in good hands, and firsthand, I can tell you as a student in it, I'm gaining quite a bit of experience, even after being in the real estate market, handing keys like you have to other people, having that experience. And you know, but there's always so many new things to learn in real estate, so many silos that the Runstad Department can offer. So let's get on to it. So when students come into the department, what is it you hope they leave with?
Well, I think our competitive edge, quite frankly, is this balance between the industry and academia. You have to have the technical skills, particularly today, to understand how to operate in a complex commercial real estate world. So you need the history, you need the background, you need the technology, you need the math, you need the accounting to really be able to operate quickly. And the master's program has mature students that have had some life experiences and are really focused on what they want to do. So when you just add a little bit of juice from the technical piece, the other element is the industry piece. So the exposure, as you talked about, right? I mean, your world has been single family and land development, but people on the board come from industrial, commercial, retail, hospitality, corporate real estate. And there's all different kinds and all different ways to play in the real estate game. But you need exposure to that. You need to understand that. You need to meet the leaders that are out there doing it and have been doing it successfully for years and years. And so I think what's cool about our program is we're very focused on internships or mentorships, opportunities to sit down and just have a cup of coffee and say, well, what did you do? Or based on my background and what would you suggest? Or who should I talk to? And in a safe way, have access. I've often said, take advantage of it, because as soon as you become a graduate, people aren't going to be answering their phones quite as quickly because now you're a competitor, right? So, but as a student, people love to engage with what I view as the next generation of community leaders, right? It's not just about the hardscape of real estate. It's about how real estate can change a community for the better, and which is why I stay involved in affordable housing of all kinds, because that's one of the things that makes up community. So I, I think that balance is really important. Sometimes there's some knocking of heads between the two, but I think we've found a pathway to give students exposure to both academic necessities and the industry's expertise, and come away with it as a community leader that can really affect change.
And I've seen that again firsthand with the leadership. I got, had you speak in our leadership class this last fall, and a number of other leaders from the industry come in and give their different perspectives. And it was a blessing to hear from so many different industry leaders on how they got into real estate with such different paths and what they're doing now. And as you said, you've transitioned now, retired, which you're not really retired, because I've heard you on Sound Communities. I've heard you on all these different boards and groups talking on affordable housing, on leadership, and really, paying it forward to the next group of hopefully real estate leaders coming out of the department, that we can take it forward and help the industry. So,
Yeah.
our blessings have been your background and what you're sharing with the next group.
Well, it's fun to do because as I say, that I think the audience is receptive and open and listening, and that's an important match.
Great. Well, turning the page a little bit, can you share with us your favorite book, hobby, charity, something more about what else you're passionate about besides or including real estate?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the leadership class, which I love to teach the one night that I get to. And my favorite book is the one I talk about in that leadership class, which is Endurance, written by Mr. Shackleton. And that is just an unbelievable journey of adversity, but leadership through adversity, where I won't tell you the whole story, you know it well, but I think you really have to establish a set of values for yourself. Who are you as a leader? And Shackleton really had some clear-cut attributes that led a group of ragtag people across Antarctica to safety after a ship sunk in the ice. I went there. We're in January. At this moment, 1 year ago, I just got home from Antarctica before COVID hit, but I stood on the island where his crew was left as he went to get the get the rescue ship. And so I was on Elephant Island, standing in his shoes. I went to his gravesite. I went to the whaling station where he knocked on the door after 2 years of this adversity and said, "Hey, we need some help." It was a fantastic culmination. But long story to your question, what's my favorite book? But it's Ernest Shackleton's book, Endurance. Read it. Hobbies, charities, you're right. I'm a busy boy. I had to write them down, all the things that I love to be involved in. And it got up towards 10, which surprised me when I wrote them all down. But focused really on a lot of different housing types, urban housing, backyard cottages. You mentioned Sound Communities, trying to create opportunities for affordable housing around our transit stations to, fully enable those. But the one I've been more and more involved in education. And I'm on the board of a charter school called Rainier Prep, which has been fascinating to see 350 fifth to eighth graders, just with some support from a great program, exceed all other schools' testing, exceed the attendance. Even in COVID, we're running at 95% attendance, where Seattle Public Schools are lucky to get 45. And so it's just been really rewarding to see, with a little extra help, a little extra focus, that everybody can learn and advance and be successful. And so that's been, I love working with you guys, but that's a little different story than the fifth grader who's never had an opportunity. And that's been very rewarding. So yeah, I'm all over the map, but the beauty of retirement is I get to do what I want to do, and I'm doing it.
Great. Well, so you're all over the map. If people want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for people to do so?
I'd be happy to receive an email, peterorser7@gmail.com.
Great. We'll put the link on the interview here so people can do so. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your experiences and some of your thoughts on the program. And thanks for all you do for it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.